The night was quiet at the mountain observatory. The wind whispered across the steel dome, and the stars above stretched endlessly, like a map of diamonds scattered on black velvet. Inside the observatory, Dr. Ilara Wynn sat alone at the console, staring at the glowing data screen. She was used to the silence. Her colleagues had long gone home, leaving her with only machines and the stars for company. Ilara was young then, barely 30, but already known for her stubborn dedication. She had studied the skies since she was a child. When others played games, she spent hours gazing through small telescopes, tracing constellations, and imagining who or what might be out there. By the time she earned her doctorate, she was convinced that humanity was not alone. Most of her peers thought it was only a dreamer's obsession, but Ilara didn't care. She searched anyway. That night was supposed to be like any other. She had her tea, her blanket draped across the chair, and the rhythmic hum of the telescope as it shifted angles across the heavens. The system scanned for unusual radio signals, looking for patterns hidden in the noise of the universe. At first, nothing happened. Hours passed. She typed notes, yawned, and checked her readings. But then, near midnight, the console flickered. A faint pulse, rhythmic and deliberate, appeared on the screen. Ilara leaned closer. Her heart skipped a beat. "That's not random," she whispered to herself. The signal repeated in patterns, short, long, long, short, almost like a heartbeat. She quickly adjusted the telescope's receiver. Narrowing its focus, the signal grew stronger, and then the lights inside the observatory flickered. For a moment, everything went dark, and Ilara froze. The monitors glowed again, but something had changed. On the main screen, static swirled into strange shapes, almost like liquid patterns trying to form an image. Ilara swallowed. Her hand trembled over the keyboard. "Is someone there?" she asked aloud, though she knew how foolish it sounded. The air grew heavy, charged, as if lightning was about to strike. Then, in front of her, a shimmer appeared. At first it was faint, like heat waves rising from asphalt. But the shimmer grew brighter, glowing with a pale silver light. The air bent around it until the shape of someone stood in the observatory. It was not solid. Its body looked like flowing energy, a form that shifted between mist and crystal light. It had no face, no mouth, yet Ilara felt its attention on her. Her first instinct was fear. She gripped the edge of the console so tightly her knuckles turned white. But the being did not move closer. It only hovered, faint, flickering, as though it struggled to stay in this world. Ilara forced herself to breathe. "You're real," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "You're not a dream." The being tilted its head, if the shape could be called a headband. A strange warmth spread through the room. Not heat from a fire, but something gentler, like the warmth of sunlight after a long winter. She did not know why, but she felt its loneliness. It was lost, fragile, clinging to existence. She sensed it without words, as if the being's emotions brushed directly against her mind. Ilara stood, her legs unsteady, and stepped closer. "You're hurting," she said softly. "I can feel it." The being flickered more violently, its light dimming as though it was slipping away. Instinct told her she had only moments before it vanished forever. Without thinking, Ilara reached out her hand. Her fingertips touched the glowing edge of its form. The instant they connected, her world shifted. She felt a surge of memory and emotion that was not her own. For a heartbeat, she stood in an endless dark void, cold and empty. Then she saw flashes of something vast, skies filled with strange stars, cities of crystal spires, a world consumed by silence. And through it all, one desperate feeling: loneliness. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered, "You're not alone." "Not anymore." The being's light pulsed brighter, wrapping gently around her hand. For the first time in her life, Ilara felt utterly understood, not by another human, but by something greater, something alien. The warmth deepened, filling her chest with hope. She could sense gratitude, deep and powerful. The being did not speak, but one message burned in her heart: "Thank you." Then, quickly as it had appeared, the being's form unraveled into sparks of silver light. The sparks swirled in the air like fireflies, then vanished into nothingness. Ilara stood frozen, her hand still stretched out, her breath shaking. The observatory was silent again. Only the hum of the machines remained, as if nothing had happened. For long minutes, she couldn't move. Finally, she stumbled back into her chair and stared at the console. The signal was gone. No trace remained. She typed frantic notes, recording every detail, the shimmer, the warmth, the vision, the touch. But when she submitted her report the next morning, her colleagues laughed. Some dismissed it as exhaustion. Others suggested equipment malfunction or hallucination. No one believed her. Her supervisor sealed the report in classified archives, stamping it with the cold words, "Inconclusive. No evidence." She was told not to pursue the matter further, but Ilara never forgot. Years passed. The world changed. Humanity expanded into space, building colonies on the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Technologies advanced. Yet no matter how far she went, or how many discoveries she witnessed, Ilara carried the memory of that night deep in her heart. She had touched something that was not human, something alive, intelligent, and beautiful, sometimes late at night. When she stood beneath the stars, she would close her eyes and feel again the warmth of that being's presence. She wondered if it was still out there, drifting alone in the void. And though she tried to move on, a quiet voice inside her always whispered, "It will come back." She did not know how. She did not know when. But she believed, because in that single touch, she had felt something eternal. It had been many years since the night at the observatory, but Dr. Ilara Wynne had never forgotten the being of light. She often wondered if it had been real, or if her mind had played a trick on her. The memory of its warmth was as clear as the stars above. But time and silence made her question herself. Ilara was no longer the young scientist full of fire and hope. She was older now, respected in her field, working as an advisor for the United Earth Space Council. Humanity had changed. Colonies stretched across the solar system. Ships traveled between planets as if it were a long road across an ocean. Spaceports lit up Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Humanity had grown bold, but with boldness came fear. Unknown signals sometimes flickered at the edge of deep space, and new threats rose from the darkness. One evening, Ilara sat in her small office at the council headquarters on Earth. Piles of reports surrounded her, all written in the dry language of politics and science. She sighed, rubbing her temples. For years, she had tried to convince others that contact with another intelligence was possible. But her old story, the being she once touched, was a memory no one took seriously. To most, it was just an embarrassing myth then. The alarm rang. The sound was sharp and urgent, echoing through the hallways. Screens lit up with red warnings. Ilara jumped to her feet, heart pounding. She hurried out of her office as people rushed past, voices filled with confusion and fear. Unknown vessel at the edge of Earth's space. Someone shouted. Ilara froze. Unknown vessel. The words struck her like lightning. She pushed her way into the main control chamber. The wide room glowed with dozens of screens, each showing data, star maps, and live feeds from orbital sensors. At the center, a giant holographic display revealed the intruder. It was enormous. Unlike any human ship, it resembled a flowing shape of silver light, shifting and changing as though it were alive. Its presence dwarfed the orbital defense fleet stationed nearby. The commander barked orders. All ships prepare to intercept. Shields up. Do not let it approach Earth. Ilara stared at the glowing form. Her chest tightened. It was impossible. And yet she knew. She felt it in her bones. It's them, she whispered. It's the same presence. The same light, the council leaders argued, their voices sharp. Some demanded an attack. Others urged caution. Finally, the communications officer spoke. We're receiving a signal. The room went silent. On the main screen, a line of strange symbols appeared, shifting and pulsing like living patterns of light. Most of the officers shook their heads in confusion. But Ilara stepped closer. Her hand trembled. She didn't understand the language, yet the message echoed inside her heart. "I know you," she whispered. "It's speaking to me." The commander turned sharply. "What did you say, Dr. Wynne?" "It's looking for me," Ilara said softly. "It remembers." The room erupted in disbelief. Some laughed nervously, others shouted that she was delusional. But before anyone could stop her, the message changed again. This time, the words were translated by the system into clear human speech. "I know you. I return for you." Every face in the chamber turned toward Ilara. The silence was heavier than stone. The council was in chaos. Emergency meetings filled the night. The vessel remained at the edge of the system, unmoving, as if waiting. Some leaders demanded to destroy it before it acted. Others argued that humanity could not afford to fight something so powerful. The vessel's size and energy readings suggested that its technology was beyond anything humans had built. Ilara sat quietly at the edge of the meeting table, listening to the storm of voices. She felt the weight of all eyes upon her. She had spent her whole life being doubted. Now suddenly the entire fate of Earth seemed tied to her. Finally, the chairman turned to her. "Dr. Wynne, you are the one this being seeks. Do you claim responsibility for this?" Encounter. Ilara took a breath. Her voice was calm, but firm. "Yes. Years ago, I touched something not of this world. It was weak, fragile, and alone. I did not know if I would ever see it again. But now it has returned. Not as an enemy, but as a friend." The room erupted in arguments again. "Friend, it's a threat." One general shouted, "It could destroy us with a thought." Ilara shook her head. "If it wanted to destroy us, it would have already done so. Instead, it waits. It calls for me. That means it remembers the kindness it was once shown." The leaders were torn, but in the end, they had no choice. Their weapons might be useless against such a being. Reluctantly, they agreed. Ilara would be allowed to attempt communication. The next day, Ilara boarded a diplomatic shuttle. She felt fear twist in her stomach as the engines roared to life. Out the window, Earth glowed blue and beautiful. She wondered if she would ever see it again. The shuttle approached the alien vessel. Its glowing form filled the view, shifting like waves of silver energy. It was not metal, not mechanical, it was alive, in a way that human eyes could barely understand. The pilot's voice trembled. Docking sequence engaged, if you can call it that. Instead of docking, the shuttle was pulled gently by streams of light. The hull vibrated with a soft hum, and before long, the inside of the vessel appeared on their screens. Ilara stepped out alone. The air felt strange, heavy yet breathable. Light flowed across the walls like water, forming patterns that pulsed with life, and then it appeared. The being stood before her, larger and brighter than the fragile form she had once seen years ago. Its shape was clearer now, like a tall figure made of living crystal and flame. Its energy pulsed in rhythms that felt like a heartbeat. Ilara's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "It's really you." The being moved closer, its form shifting with warmth. She felt the same presence as before, the same gentle touch against her heart. It did not speak with words, but the meaning filled her mind. "Years ago, you touched me. You gave me hope. I have returned because I need you once more." Ilara's breath shook. "Why me?" "Because you cared when no one else did," the being's presence said. "You reached out. You are the reason I survived." Her heart pounded. She felt both awe and fear. "What do you want from me?" The light around the being flickered, heavy with sorrow. "My people are in danger. A greater darkness spreads across the stars. Alone, we cannot resist. But with humanity, we may yet endure." Ilara stood in silence, the weight of the moment pressing on her shoulders. The being she had once saved was no longer alone. It carried with it the fate of an entire civilization. And now it had come back, not just for her, but for all of humankind. Ilara stepped back from the glowing being, her mind spinning. Its form radiated warmth and power, yet there was a deep sadness within it. She had touched it years ago when it was fragile, barely holding on to existence. Now it stood before her, magnificent and alive but burdened. "My people," Alara began cautiously. "You said they are in danger? What is happening?" The being's light pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. Then, in the silence, it spoke not in words, but in thoughts that flowed directly into Ilara's mind. "We are called Keleth. Our civilization is old, older than your sun. For centuries, we lived in harmony among the stars, spreading knowledge and life. But a darkness is rising. It consumes worlds, devours energy, and leaves nothing behind. Alone, we cannot resist it." Ilara's eyes widened. "How? How do you know this?" "We have watched the spread for decades. We fought it when we could, but our strength alone is not enough. That is why I returned to find you, to find your people." She felt the weight of those words. Humanity had explored the solar system, built colonies, and stretched its reach into space. But this was beyond anything they could imagine. "We do not seek conquest," Keleth continued. "We ask for alliance. You are not strong in weapons alone, but in connection, in thought, in courage. That is why I chose you." Ilara took a deep breath. You mean me?" "Why me?" The being's light shimmered like a ripple across water. "Years ago, you touched me when I was dying. You gave me hope. That act saved me. And now, we need your species to help save many lives across the galaxy." Her mind raced. She had never imagined that one night, one gesture, could matter so much. She remembered the warmth, the strange feeling of connection. And now she understood it had been more than a moment of kindness. "Council leaders," she whispered. "They might not believe this. They will think it is a trick, a trap." "You must convince them," Keleth said. "Humanity must see that fear is not always the answer. You have the strength to show them." The shuttle returned to Earth. Ilara sat in silence as the planet grew larger in the window. Soon, she would face the United Earth Space Council once more. But this time with proof, Keleth itself was outside orbit, waiting for her to speak. Inside the council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Leaders argued in low voices. Military commanders demanded that the vessel be destroyed. Scientists debated its origin. And somewhere in the middle, Ilara stood, quiet but determined. "Dr. Wynne." The chairman said sharply, "We have prepared a message for the vessel, but our experts are worried. It could be a trap. Are you sure you can handle this?" Ilara nodded. "I've spoken to it before. I know its mind. It will not harm us, at least, not unless we provoke it. I can communicate with it, and I can explain." The room fell silent. Then a general scoffed. "Explain? You expect us to trust? What? A glowing being that claims to remember you from decades ago?" Ilara held her ground. "Yes, and I know it because it is the truth. If you attack it, we could destroy something that wants only to help. If we listen, we might gain allies unlike anything humanity has ever known." The arguments continued for hours, voices raised, tempers flaring. Some council members insisted that Ilara was making a dangerous gamble. Others began to consider the possibility that she was right. Humanity's strength had never been just in weapons, but in courage, trust, and cooperation. Finally, the chairman banged his gavel. "Enough. Dr. Wynne will address the vessel directly. All weapons are to hold fire." Ilara entered the communication chamber. Keleth's light filled the room through the viewport, brighter than the sun at dawn. She stepped forward, taking a deep breath. The being's presence flowed around her like a warm wind. "I am glad you returned," it said. "I am glad too," she replied. "But they do not understand. They fear you. They will understand. You must show them what humans can do." Ilara closed her eyes, remembering the first night at the observatory. She remembered the touch, the warmth, the sense of understanding. That memory gave her strength. When she opened her eyes, she spoke to the council, her voice steady. "I know it seems impossible. I know it seems like a threat. But Keleth is not here to harm us. It is here to warn us, to ask for our help. Their civilization faces a darkness that could destroy many worlds, and they need humanity, our courage, our determination, our willingness to connect and fight together. Some members muttered, unconvinced. Others stared silently, listening. Ilara continued. Years ago I touched Keleth when it was weak. It was dying, and I helped it without thought of reward. That single act saved a life, and now it returns not as a conqueror, but as a friend. That is the human spirit. That is what we must show the galaxy. Our strength lies not in weapons alone, but in our hearts, our minds, and our courage to reach out when others would not. The room was quiet. Even the skeptics could feel the weight of her words. Keleth's presence flowed gently through the chamber, projecting understanding and trust. I have watched your species. You fear, you fight, you doubt, but you also reach out, help, and care. That is why I have come to you. We cannot face this alone. The military advisors whispered among themselves. They had calculated probabilities, scanned Keleth for hidden weapons, measured energy output. All pointed to one fact. This being was beyond human comprehension. Attacking it might be disastrous. Ilara could see the change in their faces. They were beginning to listen. We must consider this, one scientist said finally. If it speaks truth, humanity may be able to save countless lives. The chairman nodded slowly. Dr. Wynne, we give you the authority to negotiate. You will guide this process. Our fleets remain on standby, but no hostile action will be taken without your order. Lara swallowed hard, a mix of fear and relief coursing through her. She stepped forward to the viewport, placing her hands on the console. Thank you, Keleth's presence said. You carry the hope of many. For hours, Ilara spoke with Keleth. She learned about the darkness threatening its civilization, a force that consumed planets and energy, leaving nothing behind. She learned of Keleth's people, intelligent, kind, and advanced. Yet vulnerable without help, Ilara relayed the information to the council, translating Keleth's thoughts into words humans could understand. Slowly, understanding grew. Fear remained, but it was no longer total. Humanity began to realize that their place in the stars was bigger than they imagined. They were not just explorers. They could be protectors, allies, and leaders in a galaxy filled with unknown dangers. By the end of the session, the council reached a fragile agreement. Humanity would join forces with Keleth, not under command, but as equals. Their weapons would be ready, not for attack, but for defense. And Ilara would serve as the bridge between the two civilizations. Keleth's light pulsed brighter than ever, spreading warmth through the room. Together, we may endure, it said. Ilara felt a surge of hope. The being that she had touched all those years ago had returned, not as a stranger, not as an enemy, but as a friend. And together, they would face the darkness ahead. As she left the council chamber, she glanced at the stars. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of mysteries, but for the first time in her life, she felt ready. Humanity had a chance. She had a chance. And somewhere out there, Keleth waited, patient and shining, trusting her to lead the first steps toward a new alliance. The sky over Earth was dark, pierced by the lights of 100 fleets preparing for the journey ahead. Humanity's greatest ships, the pride of their solar system, gleamed like silver arrows ready to pierce the stars. Yet in the center of it all, the presence of Keleth floated peacefully, a flowing light that seemed to breathe with life. Dr. Ilara Wynne stood on the command deck of the largest human flagship, staring at the being she had once touched decades ago. Keleth's glow was comforting, yet it carried the weight of countless worlds in peril. You are ready, Keleth, said not in words, but in thought, a gentle wave across Ilara's mind. Ilara nodded, swallowing her fear. I think so. I've led them this far. Now it's up to all of us. The Council of Human Leaders watched from their stations, still wary. Many officers paced the deck, eyes flicking to the glowing figure outside the viewport. Some whispered doubts, wondering if humanity had made a mistake trusting an alien being, no matter how sincere it seemed. Ilara took a deep breath and addressed the officers. I know some of you fear this. I know it seems impossible to trust something so different, but we have already seen what fear alone achieves nothing. Courage, unity, and understanding, that is what will protect us. One of the senior generals spoke, his voice low but steady. You truly believe this being and its people can help us fight? Ilara's gaze met his. Do you? Not because of their power alone, but because they trust us, and they are giving us the chance to do the right thing. Her words hung in the room. Some officers hesitated, others frowned, but a quiet sense of possibility began to take root. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, and they had prevailed not with weapons alone, but with spirit, intelligence, and determination. The fleets moved out. Following Keleth's light into the darkness of interstellar space, stars streaked past the windows of the ships as faster-than-light engines carried them toward the edge of the known galaxy. Where Keleth's people faced the rising darkness, Ilara had never felt so small and yet so responsible. Every decision she made now could affect millions of lives, both human and Keleth. She thought back to the night in the observatory when she first touched Keleth. She had been young, uncertain, and afraid. Yet she had reached out, and that simple act had carried more weight than she could have imagined. Now, years later, she understood that humanity's strength was not only in exploration or technology, but in the ability to care. That care could ripple across worlds. That care could save civilizations. The first sight of the enemy shocked the human crews. Dark waves of energy swept across the void, consuming the light of nearby stars. Entire planets that Keleth had once called home had already fallen. The darkness moved like a living storm, a force without mercy. Devouring everything in its path, steady Keleth's presence flowed into their minds. We will not fight with fear. We fight with unity. Ilara relayed the commands. Form protective grids around Keleth's vessels. Focus energy shields on the outer rim. Keep your formations tight and do not panic. The humans obeyed, their hands steady on controls, their minds focused. It was the first time they had seen such a cosmic enemy up close. Yet their fear was tempered by trust in Calais. As the darkness surged, Calais' people emerged. Ships of pure energy, flowing and bright, moved with precision. They joined with humanity's fleets. Following Ilara's guidance, as Keleth's light pulsed with strategic rhythm, the battle was not loud or chaotic like humans imagined war to be. It was a dance of light and energy, strategy and willpower. Human ships fired bursts of controlled energy, Keleth's vessels responded with precise formations, and together they began to push the darkness back. Ilara felt a surge of pride and awe. Humanity was not alone. They had become part of something greater, something beautiful. And for the first time she felt the unity of two civilizations working as one. Hours passed. The darkness did not yield easily. It seemed to anticipate every move, to consume every light it could find. Many feared the fight would never end. Then Keleth's light pulsed directly toward Ilara. She felt it in her mind. Warm and calm. Now is the moment. Trust yourself and us. Place your hand again. Ilara hesitated for a heartbeat. Could one human's action truly matter in this vast battle? She looked at the ships around her, at the faces of human officers determined to fight. At the flowing light of Keleth, her hand trembled as she reached toward the interfaced the control link that connected human energy grids to Keleth's fleet. The moment her fingers brushed the panel, she felt the surge of power and trust. Energy flowed through her, connecting humans and Keleth in one network of understanding. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Together." A wave of light spread from her touch, flowing through the ships and into the very currents of the dark force. The enemy faltered, unable to withstand the combined will of two species acting as one. For the first time, it recoiled. The consuming darkness wavered, then began to shrink. Ilara opened her eyes. The sight was incredible. Keleth's vessels shone brighter. The human fleets glimmered like silver threads of hope, and the darkness recoiled, retreating from the united force of life and connection. "Keep pushing," Ilara shouted. "Do not stop. We can do this." The humans moved with precision, the energy waves guided by Keleth's intuition and Elara's strategy. Slowly, steadily, the darkness dissolved, leaving stars, planets, and civilizations intact. When the final surge of light passed, silence filled the void. Not the silence of fear, but of awe. Humanity and Keleth's people had won. Together, the fleets regrouped, energy shields dimming, systems stabilizing. Humans and Keleth exchanged signals of relief and celebration. Elara felt exhausted, yet exhilarated. Her heart raced as she looked at Keleth's radiant form. "You have done well," Keleth said. "You showed what your species can achieve when it acts with courage and trust. The darkness will return someday, but now you know the strength you carry." Elara smiled, tears in her eyes. "We couldn't have done it without you." "And you couldn't have done it without us." "Exactly," Keleth replied. "Together, we are stronger. And now, a bond has been formed that will guide us through the stars." Back on Earth, humanity celebrated, but quietly. Few understood fully what had happened. To most, it was a victory of strategy and courage. To Elara, it was something more. Humanity had proven that even in the face of unimaginable danger, it was compassion, understanding, and courage that could make a difference. Keleth lingered in orbit, its light flowing over Earth like a protective river of silver. It did not need to command. Its presence was enough. Elara returned to her observatory years later, standing under the stars that had first guided her. She closed her eyes and remembered the touch, the warmth, the connection that had begun it all. Keleth had returned because she had reached out once, and in doing so, she had changed the course of history. Years ago. "You touched me now. I've returned for you," she whispered, smiling, and as she gazed into the vast, endless sky, she realized something profound. Humanity's strength was never just in technology, numbers, or weapons. It was in the heart, the courage to act with kindness, the ability to reach out across worlds and connect. That was the true power that could shape the galaxy. The stars shone brighter that night. And somewhere in the distance, Keleth's light pulsed in response. A silent promise that together they could face whatever the universe might throw at them next. For Elara, and for humanity, the future had never felt more full of hope.